Welcome. I'm Halcyon, and this is Hug Nation. Today, the topic is losing my cool. Now, a couple things I wanted to say to preface this. One is that there are other people in this story that I think I need to include in this story so that I can talk about the things about myself that I want to share. I'm going to do my best to paint those people in beautiful, positive lights because that's how I see them in this narrative. And I generally try not to tell any story that is not my own. So I'm going to do my best to tell this story with the supporting cast, recognizing that the supporting cast is playing their roles with Oscar-like genius. The other thing I want to say is that it's not lost on me that last week the broadcast was about a friend of mine who's shared a challenging experience that they lost their cool, and I helped them to reframe the experience so that they could see it with more compassion and self-care and see it as a growth experience. So perhaps by me sharing today's tale of losing my cool, it will help me as well to reframe and see the growth and benefit of this adventure. So I think this story could start a long time ago at my birth, but I will skip ahead to a little over a month ago when I went to go to the community speaker series and saw an incredible talk by Matthew Cook and Amanda Renee. And it was about relational intelligence. And it blew my mind. It was incredible. It was, the link to it is available on the Community Speaker Series Facebook page, and I'll try to do my best to link to it as well. But they basically touched on the two roles within a relationship, a freedom seeker versus one who is more craving security. And as they talked about these roles and the interplay between them and what happens when two freedom seekers get together and what happens when two security cravers get together, and then what can happen when one of each, and the challenges and the opportunities. And as they went through this their talk, I saw so many patterns of all of my relationships, to whatever degree that they were that they had longevity or they burned hot and fast. And I saw there were narratives that I had told myself. They said things like, well, sometimes the freedom seeker will say this and think this. I'm like, I think that and say that. And so I was jaw as they were talking. And afterwards, I approached Matthew and told him how incredible I thought it was and how impacted I was. And so he reached out to do some further conversations and touch base and see how we could help each other and how we could connect, because we knew a lot of the same people and going the same direction and momentum of growth and world healing. So we did a phone call first with the two of them, kind of a get to know you, and then they suggested, why don't you do this hour and a half kind of deep dive into what you're looking for in a relationship. And, I said yes, because I'm trying to say yes to as many things as I can. And as the date on the calendar approached, as we were supposed to have this call, I started to feel like maybe this is the wrong time for me, because I'm not in a settled place in terms of my personal relationship with relationships. I don't really have a clarity of what I'm looking for, or what I'm doing wrong, or what needs to change, or what I will willing to fight for. I mean, I've yet to land since the upheaval of my last relationship. And I say upheaval only in that what was a relationship is no longer one. Not that there's any discord or anything, just this shift. So, but, I said, okay, I told them, so we had the call, I told them right away, I'm like, look, I had the instinct that maybe this is the wrong timing for this. And they were like, that's probably the best timing for this. And they said something that I thought really interesting at the start. They said, do we have your permission to be direct and honest rather than nice? I was like, yes, you do. And then we went through a bunch of exercises, one of which was kind of painting and describing my ideal relationship. If I was looking back over a perfect year, what had happened, what were the traits, what was this person like, how do we relate, and all these kind of visualizations of this, looking back at this relationship. And it was a really exceptional exercise for me. A side note, I got the best relationship advice ever from my friend Jonathan. He said, here's how to find your soulmate. Write down exactly what it is that you're looking for. Be very specific. Spend some time with it. Meditate on it. Get that list down. Write it down, and then take that list and put it in a drawer and close the drawer and don't think about it anymore. And then make yourself happy. Just focus on getting joyful, because people want to be around joyful people. Nobody is looking for somebody who is looking for something. And that's true with relationships, that's true with work, that's true with anything. Getting clear on what you want and then not clawing for it, but instead getting clear and right and joyful and allowing yourself to be a magnet to that vibration. So anyway, that was that advice. So this exercise that we were doing about visualizing and thinking about what it is, this ideal relationship, was felt like a really healthy exercise in the direction of this drawer kind of pursuit. And then, after we talked for over an hour, a question came up of, what would you be willing to do for this relationship? And it kind of like hit me. And I was sitting with it, and I didn't really know how to answer that. And I wasn't really sure how I felt about that, because I felt like the momentum of this phone call was, I just described my dream relationship, therefore the next answer should be, well, I'll do whatever it takes. Now, another side note, I felt a little resistance just to the flow of that conversation, because it triggered some like sales funnel pitches that I have been victim to. I remember looking into a retreat that seemed really interesting by somebody that I really admired, and as I went to the webpage to figure out how much it cost and what it would entail, before they would tell me what it cost, I had to agree to all of these statements committing to how committed I was to my personal growth. And it was like, is this, your attempt to neuro-linguistically program me so that I'm committed even before, like, you're forcing me to say it's priceless before you give me the price? Like, I feel manipulated. So perhaps that was triggered, but in some way, in a lot of ways, that was irrelevant, because the question itself of what are you willing to do? And so I was kind of silent, and I was trying to, I'm not really sure. And they're like, how are you feeling right now? And I was kind of like, wow, I feel really stirred up. I'm really struggling. I'm not really sure. I'm not sure if I know the answer or what I'm willing to do. I'm not really sure if that could be one of my the core thing that I've been dealing with post-relationship, is that at a very deep level, I'm not willing to do a lot in terms of compromise, in terms of changing my life, in terms of letting go of my lifestyle for another person. And then they pushed a little harder and poked at me a little bit more, with the caveat that I told them they were okay to do that. I gave permission to be poked. But as they pushed a little harder on me to answer the question and what I was like, well, I feel right now like I really want to get off this phone call, and I feel right now like I often have in the past when I've gotten arguments with a partner, and when I've told them how I'm feeling and they're not hearing me, or when I'm feeling like I need a break from this conversation and they won't let me leave, like that feeling of like the race car is getting in the red, and I need a pit stop, or else I'm gonna burn up my engine, and I feel like you're not letting me, and and I said, well, hey, can you just tell me about your program, that you're offering, so I can kind of basically click next and find out what the price is. And they said, you know what, unless you're willing to click all the boxes, unless you're really committed to change, then this probably is not the right program for you or the right time for you. And maybe we can keep talking about this and let yourself settle into this, and we can pick it up another day. And at this point, I just want to get off the phone. So I'm like, thank you for your time. I'm sorry if I wasted your time. They're like, no. They were very cool about it. They're, again, like I said, they played their role in this scene perfectly. And got off the phone, was like stirred up. I'm like, yay, yay for personal growth, because this feels awful. And so fast forward a couple hours, when I went to the Belly Up, a local musical venue, to see some amazing performer friends, Kiyoshi and Krista Richards, and a live band, and I was so excited. I went there, and I knew she would be there. It didn't occur to me until we really crossed paths that it might elevate this stirred upness I had, but my ex went to the same event, and we've been on really good terms, and I didn't think anything about that this might be any issue with us being at the same place, except for now that I had this timing of all this relationship stuff stirred up in me. So I ran into her in the back patio in the smoking area where it was quiet, and we started talking, and I was not sober, and I was starting to feel emotional. And as I shared this talk that I heard from this couple, and then as I shared some of the things that came out in this call this earlier that day, I just started bawling, crying, and saying, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. Like bawling, like, and in perfect timing, the security guard comes outside and says, we're closing down, you got to be out of here in 5 minutes. So 5 minutes later, I'm walking through the Belly Up, which now has the lights turned on as they're getting everybody to go out, but still packed full of people. And I'm walking through the crowd with like just snot dripping down my face, my eyes all puffy. Of course, I was so like, I was in a state, so I didn't really care. I was like, so we went our separate ways. Went home, struggled to go to sleep, but eventually, was able to turn it off for enough time to fall asleep. Next morning, wake up, eyes still puffy, have a brief conversation with my ex on the phone, and I'm just like, I was still like all stirred up, and I spent the whole day that day trying to do everything in my toolbook, or toolbox, everything in my toolbox, my emotional toolbox of ways of self-care. So I went and visited Diego. His third birthday was the day before, and he's just such a joy, and so I got to play with him and play with his younger sister Una, and then I had hung out with my mom. And then I hung out with my brother and sister-in-law and my nephews, and it just like did all the stuff that just like soothed me. And so I spent this whole day kind of getting myself back in track, and knowing that, okay, this doesn't resolve these things that I need to figure out, but it's at least getting me grounded enough so that I can do daily tasks and not just feel like I want to crawl back in bed. So the day was a success, had a nice recalibration with all these loved ones. Next morning, wake up, and I had some messages from my ex. And at this point I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so fragile. I'm so bruised. Like I can't start the day revisiting this conversation and this topic, you know. I'm not saying that I never can, but I just can't right now. And so I wrote back and I said, "Hey, is this some like kind of scheduling, bookkeeping kind of question that I can answer quickly, or is this about our relationship?" And when she said, "I wanted to ask you some more about what we talked about the other night," I said, I'm starting to regret we had that conversation. And you know, I'm already feeling myself like, ugh. And then she called, and I see the name on the phone, and I'm like, I don't want to do this. Like, have I not been clear? Have I not communicated? Like, I told the people on the phone call that I was stirred up. I told you that I'm done with this. I'm like, why? And so I pick up the phone and I said, "What?" And she was like, "Wow, I you know, that talk we had the other night was really cathartic for me. I mean, you clarified and you said some things that really helped me to understand stuff I've been struggling with, and now to hear you say that you wish we didn't have that talk at all, I mean, that's so selfish." And then I said, "Well, lucky you. Lucky you that you're not in a relationship with me anymore. And guess what? I get to be selfish now, because that's who I am. And that was the problem from the start. And isn't that my core problem? Isn't that why none of my relationships work? I'm selfish. I can't make anything work. Everyone's calling me, trying to make me feel better, trying to make me talk about this more. I don't want to talk anymore." And I just like, and I ended that conversation. And I have been down this road before. I've seen this pattern before. I could have, like, there was a time when I didn't know when I was about to lose my cool, and I might just, you know, erupt and not see it coming. And I've had chapters in my life, or not chapters, moments, where I acted out, slammed a door, punched a wall, threw something, and broke a treasured painting of mine. But it's been 20 plus years before I've not seen it coming. And I've gotten to a point where I can kind of say, okay, I need a break. I'm starting to feel stirred up. I need a break. But what I have not figured out how to do is, if I say that a couple times and I'm not given permission, or I'm held to continue, I have this subconscious tool to stop it. If I act out, if I scream, if I yell, if I act scary, that will stop the conversation. That will give me permission to leave. That will end this uncomfortness. Unfortunately, what ends that moment of discomfort then creates a much longer term feeling of self-judgment and frustration in myself. And that same feeling that my friend came to me with last week, of feeling like I thought I was better than this. I thought that I had more tools. I thought I was farther along the spiritual path. And so it's been a week of having to accept my limitations, a week of having to forgive myself. A lot of people, I tried to share processes or parts of this process online, because I do feel like part of my responsibility and part of my art is to share my valleys as well as my peaks, and try not to do so from a woe is me. I tried to not share it like in a complaining way. I tried to share like, wow, this is some stuff that I'm working through right now, and here are the things that I'm doing to try to for self-care, and And so for the most part, I felt like as challenging as all of this has been, it has been a process of growth. It has been a process of like sitting with for as long as I can. Like eventually the sauna gets too hot and you got to get out for a few minutes. But trying to sweat out the emotional toxins as best I can. My friend Matt sent me this an excerpt from Rainier Maria Rilke, and it's from Letters to a Young Poet, and it's genius and it's amazing and it's kind of blew my mind. But just one excerpt. We have no reason to mistrust our world, for it is not against us. Has it terrors? They are our terrors. Has it abysses? Those abysses belong to us. Our dangers at hand, we must try to love them. And if only we arrange our life according to that principle, which counsels us that we must always hold to the difficult, then that which now still seems to us the most alien will become what we most trust and find most faithful. How should we be able to forget those ancient myths that are at the beginning of all peoples, the myths about dragons that at the last moment turn into princesses? Perhaps all the dragons of our lives are princesses who are only waiting to see us once beautiful and brave. Perhaps everything terrible is in its deepest being something helpless that wants help from us. That's just a tiny excerpt from this pages and pages of just genius talking about the gifts available in the struggles. So, let's see. This is where I end this story by saying, and I've learned all my lessons, and I figured it all out, and I am now a whole and complete person, and I don't think I will ever lose my cool again. Nope, I don't think that's true. I don't think that's the case. But maybe I'm couple steps forward, couple steps back. Had an interesting conversation with my brother yesterday that kind of relates to all this. My brother and his family yesterday adopted a dog, this cute little puppy. No name yet. I'm voting for the name Jelly, but that's only because I looked at the picture and I said, she looks like a Shelly. But Shelly doesn't feel like a dog's name. Jelly. So they got a dog, and before they went to get the dog, I was talking with my brother, and in the past, he had shared some of his anxiety about that, and about how he was worried about the responsibilities of this new family member kind of falling in his lap, and that he felt a little stretched with his responsibilities already. And when I kind of asked him how he was feeling about this, he said, well, I'm really trying to change my whole perspective on things and realizing that, my goal is not to reduce my obstacles. My goal is not to reduce my obligations. My goal is not to reduce my stress. There's other more important things. And providing this priceless experience for my family, bringing more love into our house, is that worth some sacrifices? Yes. And so, as I ponder this unsettled state of what am I willing to do for a relationship, and realizing that these things that I'm afraid of doing or giving up would add stress, would add obstacles, would make me lose control, would make me put myself at the whims of others in ways that makes me uncomfortable. All of these things that would make life harder, that maybe, like getting a dog, and please don't tell any future woman I date that I compared them to a dog in this way, but maybe, life isn't about making things easy, and maybe taking the path that forces us into the red and forces us to lose our cool every once in a while is the only way to get those dragons to turn into princesses. So, reporting from midway on the journey, as always, with massive gratitude that we can share this journey together. I'm going to work on forgiving myself I think we should all do the same, and in doing so, forgive everyone. We are all midway on our journey, perfect and flawed and divine. Thank you for being a part of this. I love you. Who knows if this is all going to be archived or not? I might rewatch this and realize that I should not have said that. Who knows?